Ed, it's just wonderful to talk to you. You come recommended by a friend, and this is a bit of a magical mystery tour from me as well, because I haven't yet had a chance to look deeply into these wonderful books. Your latest is this one, Transcending the Illusion, and you've just given me these, and what I would like to do is a series of discussions with you both, because I think at this stage, Kiwis in particular need to know, beyond all the confusion, where can this be taking us as humans? And human beings need to be given hope. And so the friend you recommended said, oh yeah, these two will tick those boxes. So I looked just now before we went to air. You gave me this book, Anne, and I opened it at this. When we truly believe that we are totally supported, nurtured, and taken care of at all times, we will be. Anne, how did you come up with this book of the most beautiful ideas that would offer any desperate Kiwi absolute hope? How did you come up with this?
These first two books were from a series of lectures that I gave while I was teaching yoga. I used to give a little 10-minute talk with each class, and so these are like the talks that I would give in the class. The little sayings just dropped in over that 7 years. They just drop in and they'd be like little pearls of wisdom. There's 24 of them in there, of course. I think they're beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful book. And you said when we open it up, and we'll show some pages. I mean, here's another one. When our imagination of the future is as strong as our memory of the past, we are free.
That's correct.
That's so beautiful. As long as we imagine a beautiful future.
Well, they're just asking you to live in the present moment.
Yes.
And remember in that moment how we should be and how we can be and how we are.
Explain that more.
So there's a way to live that's very light and harmonious and positive and bright. And if we remember that and keep that in our awareness, we can stay there all the time. The problem, of course, is we get distracted and we get pulled this way and that way, and there's interesting things happening on the planet at the moment. We have to take care not to get pulled into that disharmony. We have to come back, remember who we are, remember all the beautiful people that we're meeting through Voices for Freedom and all the other groups that are working towards light and love and harmony, and centre ourselves again. Just very easy to do, just to remember each moment, every day.
Pete, what an extraordinary woman. Where did you find this woman? How did you two come together?
Well, it's a fairly long story. It's mostly related in the water talk. But I was making all of the commercially available water reprogramming devices are several $1,000s. And your average Kiwi can afford $100, not $1,000.
And explain what you mean by water reprogramming for those who haven't thought about that aspect yet.
Well, if we take Auckland tap water, it currently sits at about 6 to 8% life force for my health to make it healthy out of 100, if as good as it should be. When they take the water from the Hunuas and from the Waikato, they bring it, they centrifuge it, and then they filter it, and then they add chemicals to it, and then they do all these other things, and then they push it through pipes to our houses. But the footprint or the homeopathic resonation of all that stuff that they've removed is still in it.
And for those who doubt that, Pete, it's more and more people are waking up to the fact that beyond the science that we've known is this quantum field of science. The quantum field is what? That everything is energy. So water is full of energy, isn't it?
Yes.
Full of information.
It's so, and most of our bodies are water. So we might as well start to learn about water and its memory and its information, mightn't we?
Yes, well, it's most important that we do, because if you're drinking water that hasn't got good information, what's it doing to you?
We need to come
back
to this.
Is this why we're all in hospital, or is this why we're all running around pink and healthy? High vitality water, low vitality water, you're in hospital.
There's a huge conversation opening up just on this, but at this stage, because we're going to do a series, I want people to come to know you. How did you get to link up with this extraordinary woman, Anne?
I joined up with a couple of other men trying to make a little device for $100 that everyone could afford. And one day they announced they were going over to the North Shore to talk to this weird woman about stuff and ask her questions. And so I said, I'm coming. And they said, no, you're not. She's expecting one. And I said, well, there's already 3 of you going, and I'll only make it 4. So that was the day that I met her. And in that hour of asking questions and answers for this reprogramming device, we made it 250% more effective at reprogramming water.
In 1 hour?
Just by accessing the information. And so on my way home, I thought, I can ask the questions to find out why I've not been very well for the last 20 years. And that's a whole other story.
And here
we
you
don't
are
want
now.
to get into. Yeah, here I am
Obviously.
now, fitter and healthier at my age than I was at 30.
And how many years ago is this that you both met?
It's 21 years. It's 3 lots of 7, of course.
That is beautiful. I don't think I need to ask this, but what was it about Anne that struck you so forcefully, apart from this incredible ability to help your life? But what is a person?
Well, one of my fellow businessmen said it's a shame her name wasn't Andy, because we were just mates.
Oh, gorgeous.
And anyway, I separated and she had a free house. So I came and lived in her basement for a bit. And I graduated.
And so it was one of those meant to be things.
Yeah.
But you were great. You became great friends at that point. What were the qualities of that friendship? What is it in her that you so admired?
Absolutely no disharmony. Absolutely no negative thought from either of us towards each other or anything that we were doing, really. Yeah. Pretty interesting experience.
I think every human being on earth looks for that in a relationship, and very few find it. And what is it about Pete that you love, his qualities? I just want people to get to know you a bit before we start to talk. What is it about him that you love?
Well, I got to know him because he asked my high self questions. And I've been trained to answer questions. I've lectured all around the world answering questions. But very few people actually ask questions of pertinence. They say, why is my foot sore, and is Great Aunt Mary going to survive? But Pete's questions were a whole different angle. He wants to know how this planet works. And if you read those books, those are the answers. So that's why I first started working. When I started working with him, we realised we had to make notes because we couldn't remember all the answers because the downloads came so quickly. We had a little pocket recorder, and then Pete would type it. But in the interim, I like him because he's fun and alive and vibrant and outgoing.
That's nice to know.
And he's still asking questions.
One of the silly questions that I asked when I was trying to actually get started on a line of questions is, why is the sky blue? And the answer that her higher self gave was, if you bend light at 6.5 degrees, you get sky blue. She happens to have a son with a master's in physics, particularly bending light with lasers. And so I said to him, how do you get sky blue? He said, you bend light 6.5 degrees. So we got it both ways. And I'm a skeptic, so I like to ask someone else to get a confirmation, or go out and do it myself to get a confirmation. And for that one, I was doing a subdivision in the Waikato, and the first people that built houses spent $1 million building their houses. And when people spend, this is in the early 90s, when people spend $1 million in the early 90s, the first thing they do is take away the gate. And I was running sheep to eat the grass, to keep the grass short so my victims didn't get wet shoes when they were looking to buy sections. So I asked our entire self, and I'm sending the sheep up the road, how do I stop them going into these gates? And she said, tell the lead sheep to go to the gate that you want them to go into. And they did.
That's stunning. We interviewed somebody who works with horses, and she's able to talk to the horse through her mind, and we'll put that up, Rosemary Wyndham-Jones, and it was tangible when we were there. You see, people have been sceptical, that word sceptical or dismissive of the miracles that are around us every day, Anne. But something's happening in all this darkness and all this being coerced and losing people, losing our sense of selves, losing our freedoms, losing. But something's being birthed. That's what I feel, and many others. Do you feel that?
Yeah, we agree. There's quite a lot of information in there. Our solar system takes 26,000 years to go around the galaxy. That's actually scientific. But now my higher self information is going to come in. So as it's moving around the galaxy, the solar system moves around the galaxy, it moves through different dimensional realities. So at the moment, obviously the planet's in the third dimension, but we're about to move into the fifth dimension. So this is the whole solar system is moving into the fifth dimension. That includes our planet. And it should include humanity. So this means that humanity as a whole has the potential to lift, to develop their inner awareness, and that we call it the higher self, their inner attunement, their inner understanding. It has the potential to lift humanity so that we can move gently and harmoniously into the fifth dimension. So because this huge potential to lift is there for humanity to lift, there's the natural opposing force, which you always have in three-dimensional reality, which is trying to resist it. So we have the light and the dark, and they are opposing forces. And so the more we have the potential to lift, then the more this happens. The information we've just received really recently is that on Sunday, the scales are going to tip at last. So we're watching with great interest to see what happens there. What interesting timing.
Sunday in early June 2022.
Well, 2 weeks ago they said you've got 2 weeks and it's probably going to get worse.
But you were saying it could lift. It could become...
It'll start lifting. It'll be easier for us to live with joy and with happiness.
But will the challenges be stronger equally?
They'll start to fall off.
Wow.
Because we're becoming more fifth dimensional than we are three-dimensional. This is the solar system is becoming fifth dimensional.
So many questions in here. You have no idea the self-discipline to stay silent. Pete, what do you want to add?
If we can go back a little bit, maybe 30 years, when you first heard about the indigo children.
For people who don't know about that, I've heard about that. These unusual children with great awareness.
They're unusual to us older people. And so because I'm a skeptic, I buy books and read and research, and I found this fellow Gurdjieff who died like 1920 or 30. Not really that set on it, but he wrote one particular book, and in his book he said that not everyone has a higher self. He's writing this in like the 20s or maybe earlier, the 1920s.
100 years ago.
Not everyone has a higher self, and then he described it as being a horse, a cart and a driver. You know, the horse just wants to eat the grass, the cart just gets towed wherever it's towed to, the driver just wants to get home for a beer with his mates.
So the driver, of course, is the intellectual body, the horse is the emotional body, and the cart is the physical body. So the driver just wants to get the trip done so he can go and sit in the pub and relax. The horse actually wants to eat the grass, it doesn't want to pull the cart at all. And the cart just gets towed along. This is in Gurdjieff's book, it's very clear. He said to get all those three things working together, you need like a boss or a manager. And of course that's the higher self, get everything working together as a unit.
That's beautiful. And when you said right at the beginning, I just have these little messages. To write this book, I have these messages. So is there, for someone who's never accessed this material, would you say it's like there is another part of us? We have a busy mind. But is there a soul, some people call it a gut part that just, what do you call it, a gut that talks to you?
Well, the gut is questionable because often that can be coming from your subconscious rather than from your higher self. It doesn't mean that it's wrong, but it may not be right when it's coming from the subconscious.
But when people say have a gut feeling?
But when it's coming from the heart or higher, that's from the higher self.
Beautiful.
And so that's always going to be right. So you just check how you feel and where you feel the energy is coming from, and then you know it's from the higher self.
So, Anne, it takes sitting with ourselves or walking quietly or turning off all the devices. What does it take to access this?
It just takes practice, and it just takes a little bit of recognition about this other aspect of us. I wanted to share, I went to the first Voices for Freedom meetup just before the lockdown. It was a tiny room and we were packed in there.
This is 2 years ago.
Yes. And there was a nice young man sitting next to me and he said, I'm just not having the jab. And I said, well, I'm not either. And then this woman comes and stands in front of us. She's a bit more flamboyant than we are. She says, there's no way they're going to come near me, she says. So where is this knowing coming from? It's not coming from our intellect. We have lots of intellectual and emotional reasons not to have the jab now, but 2 years ago we didn't. Where has that knowing come from? Where does that come from? It's with us all. Everyone who's 90% of people who are jab-free, they're just not having it. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't sit right. Now we have a lot of reasons. 2 years ago we didn't. But we all followed this inner guidance, this inner awareness, this inner knowing. And we're just asking you to listen to it a little more. The more you listen to it, the more you recognize it, the stronger it comes.
And this is, I have to put this question in now because I was talking to someone the other day who was saying, how do we bring back those who may have had 2 jabs and know they betrayed that place in themselves? And my heart just filled with compassion because first they have to admit, I mucked up. I believed someone that perhaps I had a knowing that I shouldn't have given my power away like that. But I went with it because it seemed easier and it seemed I just want to get it out. And now they're regretting. How do we love them and bring them back?
Well, they have that knowing that they shouldn't have had it. All they have to do is bring themselves back and sit with their knowing again. Just remember, we all make mistakes. We all fall off the path. We do as well. We take the wrong turn and have to come back. We just come back. Remember, that was the right message. Next time I get a message like that, I'm going to listen to it.
When you make the wrong turn, you know you've made the wrong turn. And so you just retreat. Going back to the indigo children. The indigo children are now 45 years of age. And so anyone that's 45 and under, and anyone that's 46 and older, the 46 and older are the people that Gurdjieff's talking about that don't have a higher self. 20% of that population have a higher self, and only 5% use it. 45 and under, 80% have a higher self, and 80% of them use it.
So this is the evolution. This is the evolution of humanity. This is where we are going, where we all have this gift and this potential to live with our inner knowing and our inner understanding. But the problem is that it's not really accepted out here. You know, we're told we have to live like this, we have to live like that, we have to go to work. And we forget to take time and to remember that there's this other aspect of us, but it's becoming stronger and stronger. This huge upsurge of under 45-year-olds, they're becoming a force to be reckoned with, of course.
In the first love letter I put out, just because my heart was aching so much that day and I couldn't take one more day of it, and I spoke everything that felt true, including the fact that I felt that earthquake when she declared we must all have these jabs and we couldn't go to a gym or have a haircut or anything. Yeah. And I said that earthquake was as if Papa Tunuku, Mother Earth herself, was crying for us. Of course, partially, I'm a poet and I love beautiful writing. Partially that was a metaphor. But partially I knew it to be a truth as well. Yes. And I say that now because I've been so ridiculed for that they put out that as a ridiculous thing. I must have lost the plot, I must be a crazy woman. But we are moving to this place of connection with our nature side, with our Mother Earth, with our Rangi, our Sky Father. Māori talk about it, every indigenous population talks about this. But if you're white and you dare say that, you have to be crazy. We're so out of touch with these forces that we used to be so connected, didn't we, with our water, our land, our air.
Yes.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yes, we all used to talk to our animals 200 years ago. For some reason...
Education happened, I'm afraid.
Yeah. We've forgotten. It's like the intellects come in and overpowered that natural affinity that we have with nature and with natural living.
And that includes our own true nature, this higher self you talk about.
Yes.
Why do you say education, Pete? Take us there.
Well, one of my favourite people is a man by the name of Victor Schauberger.
It's wonderful.
And he declined his parents' offer to go to university. His brother went to university, but he didn't. And Victor Schauberger stayed in the forest and studied things that still to this day cannot be replicated. Not because they've been suppressed, it's because no one can think the way he thought. Like his flume that he designed to bring logs out was shaped like the way that a snake moves, and he set the water down it to get the logs out for the crown prince or whoever, whose wife was a gambler, and he needed some money, and so he needed to log the backcountry. And he's got his flume built, and he sends the first log off, and it gets into the flume and then sits down and doesn't move. And he's like, oh my God, and he sits down on a rock to ponder what's going to, because he's coming tomorrow, and he sits down on a snake, and he gets up and flicks it into the lake. But the snake, instead of just swimming like this, it also does this, right? So it's going side to side, but it's going up and down. So he got a whole lot of kindling, and he chopped up the kindling and got his men to nail it on the flume. And by 7 o'clock the next morning, they got that done. I wonder if that'll work. And they logged out millions of feet of timber because the water had to buck as well. This you cannot learn by going to university, I'm sorry. This is nature and observing nature.
And feeling.
Yes.
Is it being still? Does it require a stillness? For someone who's constantly looking at their phones and busy and stressed and just thinking about tomorrow, how does someone get even close to that, Pete? Do they have to sit and become a guru, or can you do it little by little?
Definitely don't have to become a guru.
No. I think the more that you practice, like, for instance, when I was first in Anne's home, I watched her hang out the clothes, and like most normal people keep the clothes pegs on the line, but she doesn't. She picks up a armful of washing and a handful of pegs and hangs them out, and when the washing's all hung up, she goes inside with no pegs left because she's online. So I practice that when I'm crawling around under a house that I've shifted and I have to screw on nail plates. I just grab a handful of plates and a pocket full of screws and go about it, and hey presto, ran out of plates and screws and had finished. So everyone should be doing this day to day, minute by minute, second by second. But we don't. We get up in the morning and we do an hour's meditation, stilling our minds, centering ourselves, and then we go and make tea and things, and we forget all about that because we've done our hour. Sorry, an hour doesn't cut it. 24/7 cuts it.
So your point with the washing was she's so present, or you under the house. What is that, Anne?
Well, I automatically, I say my higher self picks up the right number of clothes pegs. So for me, if I have the wrong number of clothes pegs, I say, I must be offline. What's wrong? And I stop and I look and see why didn't I get it right the first time? It sounds ridiculous, but your whole life can be like this. We're trying to share what your potential is. All of you have had moments of living like this, where things flow and things just work out and the right person turns up. When you place your attention on that, and when you recognize it, it empowers it, and it happens more and more and more. It's just that easy. You just have to recognize, wow, that was a nice little coincidence. It's happened again. Not, wow, that was a little nice coincidence, and what have I got to do next?
I remember
You
hearing
need to acknowledge it.
A definition of coincidence mathematically is the perfect mathematical meeting of 2 points.
Of course.
It's not a random act.
Yes.
But we were talking about synchronicities in the weekend at the Regenerative Agri conference, and Farmer James is marvelling at the number of synchronicities. And I said to him, it's as if the universe keeps telling him you're in the right place.
Yes.
You're doing what you're meant to do. But what about that person with that busy, busy mind? Because it's the mind. Isn't it funny that as humans we have to not battle our own mind, we have to, what's the word for it, Anne? Is it befriend this busy mind that possibly did come from all that education which took us out of our connectedness with ourselves?
Perhaps the first thing is to recognise that you've got a busy mind, because a lot of people don't even stop to recognise that their mind's running away, and they never actually take time to go and stand on the grass or look at the sun or go out and stand in the moonlight or feel the wind on their face. They're so busy that they've forgotten. They just need to remember that there's more in this busy mind. It's what I'm saying sounds ridiculously simple. It's just remembering there's this other aspect of you all the time. The more you do it, the more you acknowledge it, the more it becomes empowered, and the more a part of your reality it is. And you can start right now, today, this instant.
So, Anne, is there, you say it's simple, but is there something simple that we could just offer to people watching this, who are beginners or intermediates or advanced, but just something we could all, watching this, stop and do and just feel that in our bodies? What would you say?
Yes, there is something very simple you can do. You just get your cell phone and you set it to bleep every hour on the hour. So every hour on the hour it bleeps.
Or quarter past, it doesn't need to be on the hour.
And you just recenter yourself. It's quite a challenge because you can just, and then keep on going. You don't say, oh no, I'm going to do that when I've got time. You just stop and remember the higher self.
And then carry on.
How beautiful. Is it a breath or is it a...
It's a thought.
It's just a thought. It's just remembering, pulling your focus back to your inner awareness rather than whatever you're doing. And if you do that for 5 days, every hour on the hour, and you know families have done it all night as well, with the kids waking up and telling their parents, it's just bleeped, Mum, you will be amazed at the difference because you suddenly realise that it's actually really easy to do. It's so simple and so easy. Just every hour on the hour, but you have to do it on every time it bleeps, not like 5 minutes later. Just.
What about those who are like Pete, sceptical and go, I don't have a higher self, I can't feel a higher self, that doesn't feel real to me yet? Is it just fake it till you make it? Just, I'm going to ask, do you ask that higher self?
Fake it till you make it.
Just do it.
Right.
It's just a moment or an instant's thought. We're into really easy things. Like I was a shearer, you know, that's hard work. This is simple, just a thought.
I absolutely
Center and then carry on with your day. If you're washing the dishes, it went beep, reset it. And it takes you that long to reset it. And you just, while you're resetting it, you're tuning in to your higher self.
But what's lovely, you know, every time, Anne, I put up washing now, I'm going to think of what you just said, what Pete just said. So
you must realise, like a good chef, when they're working in the kitchen, they don't use a recipe book. They just put what feels right into the scone mix. They just mix it and put what feels right. That's their inner knowing. We're using it all the time. We just don't realise. So, you know, a good chef, when somebody's working in the garden, if their garden's thriving, they're coming from this area. They're listening to what the plants want, and they're giving the plants what they want. They're not telling the plants what they think the plants should have. They're listening to what the plants want and supplying it for them. And then the garden grows, and they say, oh, he's got green fingers. In all aspects of our life, we have this ability. It's just, actually, nobody's told us. Particularly, in my experience here in New Zealand. Nobody told me when I was young.
Yes, how did you come to this?
Oh, I want to go back a few seconds. Listen to the plants. Don't tell the plants or talk to the plants. Listen to the plants, because everyone that listened to Anne said, oh yeah, I talk to the plants, if they do it. They all talk to the plants. No, listen to the plants.
Because the plants will tell you, or you'll feel where they want to be planted, or you'll feel when it's the right time to plant, always just before the rain, of course. It's just a feeling.
That's so funny. I have had that feeling.
Of course, we all have.
Yes, it's so beautiful. I collect little plants that have seeded themselves in the pavements. There's a person who has marigolds in her garden, and they seed themselves in the cracks, and I say, would you like to come to a beautiful garden? And that their little roots seem to give. And yes. I think, oh, Liz, you're just imagining it. It's crazy, but it's fun, and I love playing with it. You're saying there is actually something in that.
Well, you probably heard the plant saying, rescue me.
Yeah.
We're all energy beings. We have so limited our existences on Earth. Why have we done this? Is it that play of light and dark? As if there's some force. We see it in mainstream media, where they're dismissive, they're derisive, they're labelling, oh, that's mad because it doesn't fall within the accepted paradigms. Why have we shut down so much of what we're capable of as humans?
Well, once again, it's part of that 26,000-year cycle. So the 26,000-year cycle can be divided up can be multiplied by 7. So there's a 186,000 year cycle as well. This is called the Kali Yuga if you're interested in Sanskrit writing. They call it the Kali Yuga. It's a 186,000 year cycle. This is the length of time it takes for our galaxy to go around our universe. This is also scientifically correct, but now you're going to get what the higher self says about it. So the first cycle of 26,000 years, things were very light and ethereal, and we have all that mythology about fairies and dragons flying through the air. That's from that first 26,000 years. The second 26,000 years was the age of the dinosaurs and the giants. I don't want to be controversial here, but things were a lot bigger because it was not as dense. So we come from very light to a little bit denser, and then the next 26,000 years is the Atlantean time and the Lemurian time. It was quite easy to build pyramids then because things weren't as dense and heavy as they are now. And now we're in this 26,000 years, which is the maximum density. And after we come out of this, we'll start to get lighter again, 26,000, 26,000, 26,000, and repeat that cycle as the galaxy goes around the universe. So when you look at it from that perspective, it answers your question, because we're like in the maximum density of this 186,000 years, so everything's compressed. But remember, we've all chosen to incarnate here, to learn about this, to experience it, and to master it. So we can look at it as a blessing, because we are forced to live with this inner awareness, or else we go under into the maximum density. It's not bad when you look at it from the overall perspective. Just when you have your binoculars on, and it does look pretty untidy out there, but it's never going to interfere with the light and the love of God and of the divine.
What an extraordinary explanation. I remember when Mandela left prison, something he said, they could take everything from me. They could even take my eyesight in those, when he had to be chipping the stones in the white desert sort of conditions. But he said there was one thing they couldn't take, I wouldn't give it to them, and that was my soul.
Yes.
It's that higher self, isn't it?
Yes.
So even in this much density, there is a part that, unless we give it away, nothing can take.
Yes. And the purest diamonds come from the greatest pressure.
And this is what this latest book is. We've got Transcending the Illusion. Is this what you're about to put this out? Is this what this is talking about? I'll be reading it before our next talk.
It's explaining it's explaining the nature of three-dimensional reality.
Why is it 3-dimensional to 5? What happens to 4th dimension? Someone said to me, what is all this?
We're in it.
Good. So the the three-dimensional reality is yin and yang held in balance. That's the 3 bits: yin, yang, and
light and dark.
And balance. Yes. But it's also the Q, height, width, and breadth. So everything is in 3s. The 4th dimension is the etheric levels, the parts, the energy that's between the Q. It's between the atoms, between the electrons and the protons. That's the etheric, the energy that doesn't have form, that doesn't have an energetic structure or an energetic vibration. That's the etheric level, that's the 4th dimension. The 5th dimension is the higher self energy, the overlighting energy manifesting on an individual basis with each individual human rather than humanity as a mass. So that's the 5th component of 5-dimensional reality.
When you say manifesting within each individual, is that where that freedom of choice comes? We can open to it, or we can shut ourselves away from it, or do we not go into that? We from this 3rd dimension through the 4th, this is where choice is, isn't it? Whether people will open. It's not inevitable that everyone will open to it.
There's always a choice wherever you are, to live with the higher self or to not live with the higher self. It's your only choice, whether you're 5th dimensional or 3-dimensional or 1-dimensional.
What happens, Anne, to someone like the Prime Minister, who many Kiwis feel now has lied to us, has taken some very dark choices in her life, has chosen to hurt many, many people and ignore them, and I'm interviewing those people. So there's times of great anger in me towards her, and I think she must be made aware, and she must pay a price for all the people she's hurt. And then other times, I guess the higher part of me goes, it's not your business, Liz, what happens to her. She will
Yes.
learn her lessons and be taken care of. What does happen to someone who makes those dark choices to hurt others?
I would agree with you. It's not my business, and it's not an area that I should focus on. I should focus on the people that are in the light, like yourself, who are supporting and enhancing all the people that are living with their inner awareness and with their inner knowing. It's better to put our energy with those people rather than with the people that are not doing that. If you spend too much time there, you get pulled into that. We don't want that.
So it's where we put our energy. It's
Yes.
so crucial.
Because there's this huge group of people, this groundswell of people standing up and speaking out. There's people standing up with mics and speaking in front of huge crowds, and they would never have done that 10 years ago. It's extraordinary. We can support them and uplift them, put our energy to them, and it empowers them.
Does it amplify that? Does
Yes.
it produce more of that?
Of course, yes.
How did this happen, Pete? When you met Anne, did she connect with her higher self this easily? Was she aware?
Yeah, she did, but because it's people just can't ask questions.
Yes.
But I was an organic farmer from like 83 on, because apparently I had chemical poisoning, so I had to stop using chemicals, and like you can't, because I come from a line of medical people, and I've got that worse than the normal person that you use medicine, and it's impossible. You can't.
So you actually had physical signs of chemical poisoning?
Well, no, I just was. Don't worry about it. I was really ill.
So when you met Anne, was Anne as aware as you became of the abilities that she had in her?
Oh, well, she'd taught yoga for 7 years. And then when she stopped teaching yoga, people started driving down her drive.
Yeah, to listen to my higher self, I was very shy and very nervous, and but people seemed to recognise what was available, and I ended up lecturing all around the world.
Did you though, Anne? Did you, being a shy, retiring sort of person, did you recognise very young what you had, or did it take? My question to Pete was really, did it take someone like Pete to make you more aware of it?
I've recognised how I was in retrospect. I had no idea that I wasn't normal when I was growing up, of course, because how could I? But now I realise that this gift has always been with me quite strongly, but I didn't know what it was.
Were you in a nurturing environment when you were young? Did your parents deride you for this?
No, not really, no.
Because I ask that because I've met different people who have these healing abilities on the earth, and many have told me their parents derided them, told them to stop being silly.
Yes.
Perhaps only one I know in Australia whose parents nurtured them. Yeah.
Because they don't understand, so it's not actually their fault. And then when you grow up and become independent, then you start to realise what you do have to share.
If you're a light soul energy, which is one of the 12 rays or colours that you can see there, if you're a light soul energy, you can see the unseen thing in the corner that the cat or the dog is sitting looking in the corner at. But if you're one of the other soul energies that can't see, say, don't be stupid, child. There's nothing there, right? And so because they're totally unaware of the stuff, so you get a child that's susceptible to seeing stuff, they can't go to sleep at night. Because when it's dark, they can see all this stuff in their room. Scares the hell out of them. But if you turn a big 240 light bulb, with 100 watts of light, they go sound asleep straight away because the unseen's being pushed away. This is such little known stuff, but any child, or any parent that's got a child that won't sleep, just turn a big light on. Don't turn one of those silly little wee things on the side. That doesn't chase it away.
Is that the imaginary friends as well, Anne? Is that what children
often it is, yes. 90% of the time it'll be something like that.
What's a good thing to do for a child like that then? Just nurture it. Say, oh, that's interesting, tell me more.
Definitely. And I would also say maybe don't tell people outside of your home about it because you might be ridiculed.
Yes.
But here in home and with your family.
I loved what you said, Pete, that the indigo children who are now 45, they have awareness, but I'm a little bit horrified that many of them have given in to the coercion of the government, and I can't put those two things together.
That's down to our modern age with screens.
Right.
They're too busy doing this.
Are either of you on screens?
Well, yes, we're on Zoom regularly with people all around the world.
You want to see my phone? It's a flip phone. And very interestingly, it's rung twice in the last 2 days, and both times when we've been on Zoom, and our phones never go when we're on Zoom.
What are you meaning by that?
That means
It was something interfering with
something out of
calls.
order. Yeah. So we have is it Ethernet cables in the house rather than having Wi-Fi, which means it's a little bit untidy up there because there's cables running everywhere.
And why is that, Anne, for people who haven't
I think
thought
that
about that?
the Wi-Fi potential, that energy, is just one more form of pollution that we don't need to live with. The other thing is we discovered that contact energy will allow you to remove your smart meter. I'd really like that information out there. So they come and they take your smart meter off. And you have to pay like a few $100s, and then they come and read your meter every month or so.
And why not a smart meter?
Well, it's the same thing.
EMF.
There's vibrational frequencies coming through there that are not necessarily harmonious to our health and well-being.
Can they
And it's
cause
just-
real health problems?
For some people, they do. Some people are more sensitive than others. So if it affects some people who are more sensitive, it's affecting all of us a little. So we just try and keep things as etherically clean as we can.
It gets back to what you were saying in this density. There seem to be, and many people who are waking up are saying, there seem to be so many things wrong with the world. Why is
Yes.
the Auckland Council spraying glyphosate still on
Yes.
our burns? Why are we having these smart meters, and many people are wanting to investigate 5G a lot more? It feels as if just so much is being misguided. And where do you see this finishing? Where do you see this dance of
I just
light
think
and
it's a
dark?
pressure cooker, and the strongest diamonds come out of the most pressure. We're just in a pressure cooker at the moment, and it's getting worse.
Is it going to get a lot worse? Do you feel?
Well, my higher self said it's going to start changing on Sunday, and then it said it's going to be 6 months of gradual improvement.
Wow. Pete, what do you feel
And
about
this,
Well, you see, I've listened to these predictions for 20 years now, and I've seen a lot of them come true. The first one, when she told me about the colours that you can see on the front of that book, it was in the early 90s. She said, how do I know if what I'm lecturing on is correct or true? Because she's downloading it. It's not knowledge that she's got in her head, it's being given. And she told me that she would see this flat rainbow of these mysterious colours. And we'd been for a road trip with an 80-year-old in the back seat. This is a wee while ago when we were young people. And we'd been right up north, and we pulled into Kerikeri and, sorry, not Kerikeri,
Waipu.
down Waipu to have lunch. And I thought I could see what Anne had talked about. And so I drove straight through the town and out to the coast. And I parked up, and Anne and the old fellow in the back's like, what are we doing here? I'm not telling you. And then after a little while, I looked and neither of them were wearing sunglasses. And John, while he's nearly the same height as me, but he was slouched down in his chair. So he was looking through the windscreen below the band at the top. And I had sunglasses on. I was seeing, like that's where I sit in the car, I was looking through the top band of the windscreen. And so I gave my glasses to them and I said, so sit up and look through there and then tell me. And they saw the colours that are on the front of
Can we
Stu.
see on the cover of this book the significance of that, Anne?
Well, they're the fifth dimensional energies. So we all know what the rainbow looks like with its 7 rays and its 7 colours. So in the fifth dimension, there's going to be 12 rays and 12 colours. They're beautiful, and they're starting to appear in the sky in the little fluffy clouds close to the sun. And they're becoming more and more easy for us to see on a daily basis, especially around midday. It's a lovely clear blue sky and a few fluffy clouds. And there they are, you can pull them out.
Do you need sunglasses on?
Occasionally I can see them without them.
But better to have sunglasses.
When Ian's son was graduating with his light thing, we went to have sandwiches and things with the professors, you know, and I got my flash suit on and got my sunnies on, and I walk outside because, you know, gee, look at those colours up there. And the professor came out. And I said, here, put these on and tell me what those colours are up there. And he looked at them. I said, can you see them? And he said, He gave me my sunglasses, and he actually left the building. This is my problem. When I have someone who has the ability to explain something to me, it scares the hell out of them. Like, why did he leave? Why didn't he say something?
Why is he no longer curious?
Yes.
Yeah. And so we then were told that you can look up a certain form of cloud. And so I looked up this form of cloud, and I emailed this professor in the States, and I said, we're seeing these colours on a regular basis in New Zealand and in Australia around noon. And he emails back and says, no, you can't. You have to be in an aircraft at 40,000 feet above the Arctic or the Antarctic. And you have to have specialised equipment. And so I emailed back and I said, we have specialised equipment. They're called Ray-Bans. And that was the end of the conversation. Like, why didn't he say, how come you're seeing them, or what are you doing? You know, like, it's just so basic to me, and it's really disappointing that our people that we're supposed to look up at, the universities,
the educated ones, the university, yes,
they let us down.
What has happened with our education? Can we see what?
Well, I think the fundamental thing is you have to get peer reviewed to get a paper published, and they're all the peers that are reviewing it, and so people that think outside the box, as I do and Anne does, we can't get peer reviewed because...
But anything that comes into the planet that's new, any new concept that comes into the planet, it's always very hard for it to be accepted. Pete always uses the example of the electric light bulb. That information was available on the planet like 10 years before it actually was put out into the public. And the actual person who invented it, he's just lost in the mire, because somebody just comes and develops and picks it up. So what's happening here is the planetary holographic reality doesn't carry this new information yet, because it's not held in people's belief systems. So people's belief systems and what they know forms a planetary holographic reality. It's all in that book. And that's what creates this reality. And so when we bring something in new, it's like people can't recognize it or remember it or understand it, and so they just back away.
Give me an example of where, so that holographic description you gave is, it's as if I open to a curious idea, I open my mind, you open yours. There's a linking of those thought atoms in a way. If we're painting that, we almost hold hands in our thoughts around the planet eventually. Where's an example of where a new idea like that took off?
So when we get enough people all thinking the same thing, then it manifests. So there was a book written many years ago called The 100th Monkey. Yes, where there was some monkeys on an island watched a human peeling a banana, and so they gave it a go. So eventually the whole island, all the monkeys on that island were all peeling the bananas. And that was enough banana peeling energetic potential for monkeys to become a planetary holographic reality. And all the monkeys started peeling their bananas globally. And you can rest assured they weren't using cell phones.
It's extraordinary. Mind you, you're reminding me of a meme about monkeypox. I think it's one of the better ones, where instead of having the nose test with the swab, we're going to stick a banana up our noses. Yes. We'll put that aside because it's great to laugh at monkeypox. We have to laugh. But just getting back to that idea then, we share these ideas. Is it that idea, Anne, that if we are brave and we dare to speak out about an idea and we dare to have the ridicule come back at us, but we stick with what that higher self, that thought, that knowing in us knows, eventually that idea can spread.
Yes.
We know a man who lives in Auckland who invented a thing for cutting steel. And he invented a thing for cutting steel plus electricity, which meant you could wave it at a tank at a distance and it would slide in half. And so they wouldn't give him the permit, give him the patent for that. But they did take him to the States and show him NASA and Skunk Works and various places. And he told us, because we were talking to him about the 100th monkey, how when we do our work, when we'd done 100 patents, it became easier. When we'd done 100 clients, it became really easy. And so he told us this funny story. He said he was at the place where they were making stealth helicopters, and they had 3 sitting in the hangar, and they were going to test fly one on this particular day that he was there. So he was in luck. And the guy said, we've learned if we build one and test fly, it always crashes. But if we build 3 and we leave 2 sitting in the hangar and fly the other one, it flies. So this is creating the hologram to hold it together for something that is entirely new on the planet.
That's fascinating. Why, Anne? Why does the 3 make such a difference?
Well, it's not just the 2 on the ground, it's all the engineers and all the staff and all the focus, and they can see it and it's real. And it builds that planetary holographic reality.
And they're holding less nervousness because they've now done 3 instead of just 1. There's less riding on just the 1. Maybe they're holding more confidence in their energy field.
It's an energetic component that builds up, yes.
Isn't that beautiful? So equally, how did they spread the fear of the jab so fast?
Well,
it was a similar fear hologram, wasn't it?
Yes.
That went around.
Well,
so it can
very
work on
good at
both
it.
sides.
Yeah. Yes, it could be used for positive or negative, of course.
Negative. Something you said before we began recording, Pete, which really resonated. As humans raise our vibration, our understanding, our knowledge, equally the darkness that would pull that down, limit it, silence it, raises. Can you explain that idea a bit more? Just to help people who feel perhaps excited by this and then leave this conversation and go out there and think, but there's so much darkness. It is a dance of light and dark on this earth, isn't it?
So back in Gurdjieff's time, when only 20% of people had a higher self, the other 80% of people have what we call a group soul, as in a sheep group soul or an elephant group soul.
Perhaps you better explain that. I've heard that animals...
Well, the animals have an overlighting...
They have like an overlighting group higher self energy that sustains them.
As opposed to...
Individualized.
Individualized, which is us.
Yes.
If we
and
are.
as the people in that group evolve, they evolve to the point where they can have their own individualized higher self-awareness.
So back to that explanation, Pete.
And so eventually they get to having a higher self, and then they might have 5,000 incarnations to get to be able to walk on water or become Christed or Brahma, Buddha or whatever master you like to name.
The conversation is so rich. There are so many directions we could go in. I mean, already, Pete, I've identified for future conversations, the water has to be a conversation on itself, an interview of itself, an interview by itself. And I think that might be our next one. But for those who could be sitting at home watching this going, this is all too much, the 5th dimension, the energy systems. Can we get an example from one of you, say you, Pete, as a former farmer? Can you take us to animals that use this energy system effortlessly, magically? Something that will show people there is already this magic working beautifully in the animal or insect kingdom. Can you think of an example like that?
That's a bloody curly one.
Bees.
Well, bees, yes, bees do. Bees, they work as a hive, and they go off and look for nectar sources, and they'll come back and they'll do a dance on the entrance, and they dance around, and one says, I've found apricot flowers at this one tree, and another one says, I've found a whole lot of purudikawa flowers, flowering right now, incidentally, just over there. And another one will say that they've found some mangrove flowers, and they describe how much there is, and then the bees go and pick that particular quality of flower that there's a lot of.
I've seen footage of those bee dances. It's quite extraordinary, and you do wonder What are they doing? What are they
Yes.
communicating? What is that, Anne? Is it energy communication that we're talking about with them?
Well, it is a group energy, and they're all working together on a frequency level. The whole hive is split up into drones and worker bees and the home bees that stay at home and look after the hive and the queen bee, and they all work together as a unit. It has to be done with a form of telepathy. It has to be done on an energetic level.
Is this where, Pete?
One of the most startling things for me is I used to keep bees in the 70s, and they were very dark bees, which meant they were extremely wild bees, and they used to produce a lot of honey, but man, they could sting. And then I worked out that on some days I would light my smoker and pull the hive completely apart and put it back together and even never use the smoker and not get a sting. And another day I would go down there with the smoker and I'd puff smoke everywhere and I'd get stings all over the place. And then when I got really unwell, and I walked past 10 metres away and they came out and stung me. So they know what their owner's doing. And just recently I've been going out with a professional beekeeper to try and look and learn. So I'm watching what he's doing, and he's making me do what he's doing. And we've been through, I don't know, perhaps 150 or so hives together. And got a few stings the first day, but then I did wear shorts and I did wear just sandals and I did have a short sleeve shirt on. But the next day I went out, I didn't get any stings.
And you put that down much more to your energy then. Is that what I'm picking up?
Mm.
Your energy when you were sick, they could sense it and...
Yeah, no, they sting you. Mm.
Fascinating.
Yeah, they keep you away from the hive.
Oh, because they don't want someone unwell nearby.
It just doesn't feel good. Yeah.
How incredible. Anne, is this where we could potentially move then as a species? Let's move out of the world we're in now and what we are moving into with all this beautiful light change that you're talking about. But what else is it in our human communities?
Oh, I don't think it's a potential. I think we're doing it. I think these group meetups that we're having with Voices for Freedom and the time down in Wellington and these meetups, we've all formed our own community. I'm amazed at what's already happening in New Zealand. I'm sure it's happening all around the world. I think it started. We just need to be together. We like being together, of course. And we need to share our knowledge and our learning because each individual's got something else to bring to the group. And the energy is building. I don't have any doubt about that anymore.
So Freedom Village was a really significant,
Yes.
it felt to me deeply significant. So
Yes.
many Kiwis say that is how we could live in
Yes.
community. Tell me more of what you picked up around that beauty, that love.
Well, I was not there, of course, but I watched it with great interest. They're all coming from their inner awareness or they wouldn't be there. Even if they don't know. There's always a few exceptions, of course, but the majority of people there are there because it feels right. It feels that if they're there, they can have an impact on their reality for themselves, their family, their children. But it just feels right. So they're just following that inner guidance. Some people are there, some people are here supporting and sending food. Some people are filming, as Jono does for us, all working together as a unit. And look what happens. It's amazing. But there's smaller groups here in Auckland doing the same thing. I find it extraordinary how it's evolving. So for me, I think a lot of positive, uplifting energy has come out of this in spite of what's going on. We've met some really lovely people that I don't think we would have met before.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
Sitting, out under the trees in Milford Beach. It's amazing to us. Yeah. And we're all having to stand up now and say who we are. In the old days, we used to be quiet and keep our mouths shut and just talk to the people that it was okay to talk to. But now we're all like having to stand up and speak out.
And not hide our light.
Yes.
Not hide our light anymore.
This is who I am. Yes.
What can you see coming in terms of a new way of governing or a new way of Governing even
I
sounds
think
like
that
an
the
old-fashioned.
energetic component around the present governing system will just fade away. It will lose its power naturally because, as I said, the solar system is becoming more fifth dimensional. So the governing system requires hierarchy, control, rules, regulations. Not much of this in there, although there are always exceptions, of course. And so that way of being and that way of living is no longer going to be empowered as we move into the fifth dimension. So it will just fade away, and the people that are moving forward, listening, following that inner awareness, they're going to just develop a new way of managing this interesting reality that we're in.
And we don't have to worry forward about that. We began as saying, be in this moment. Don't worry about how that will happen, but
Well,
trust it will.
Look at what we've achieved so far. I think it's extraordinary.
Beautiful. So from this darkness, Pete, did you feel that from the beginning? From this darkness will birth
Oh,
more?
absolutely. I've always been positive about it. I'm more positive when I hear people trying to do things without the conventional superphosphate additives to farming. And yeah, it's just all growing.
We talk a lot about that in A Matter of Authenticity, about different ways of farming.
Yes.
Could we sit and decide over the coming week or so a series of these conversations with different subject matter with you both, of ways to nurture the new New Zealand that is birthing? I would really love that. It's just fascinating. And I'd say here that we could ask for any questions from people who are watching this, who may want to send those in to us. You can send them to liz.gunn@freenz.org, and then we'll put them to Anne and Pete over the coming weeks. Be a delight to keep this going. Pete, already I want to talk water next time.
Well, I want to close a little bit on, I planted 160 hectares of pine trees at Karapiro. And when we claim our carbon sequestration, we have to measure it. We have to get a professional to measure it. Well, you can do it yourself, but... So I engaged a professional who sent his lackey to do it. And he rang me and said, oh, I think he's made a mistake. I need to check it. And so he checks it and said, no, he's got it right. And then the next time I used a different consultant, and he sent his lackey, and he came back and said, I think he's made a mistake. And so I went with him, and after he'd measured a couple of plots, he said, no, are you sure you didn't plant these trees 10 years earlier? And then the third time I got it measured, I used a man from the South Island who's got a PhD, and he sent someone else, and they measured it, and he came back to me and he says, you are sequestering 200% carbon on the lookup tables. So I've asked Anne's higher self, how can I make my trees grow at their potential? Because I used my scientific measuring device called a pendulum, and it said I was only growing them at 46%, which is all of New Zealand's trees only grow at 46% of their potential. How do I make them grow at 100%? I rest my case. So we...
How did you do that though? How did you... What were
I stood up here and I said, grow you buggers. Basically...
Serious? You did? You
pretty much.
You put the energy into that?
Yes.
Pretty much just asked for them to grow. I did do a few things, like I planted a puriri and a kaikatea and an oak tree in amongst the trees.
Ah, you made some diversity in the soil.
Only 3 trees, 160 hectares. It didn't make a lot of difference.
Wow, or it could. We don't know.
Well, yeah, so was it that, or was it because we actually worked with the Devic realm and got the Devic realm on side, and so we got our trees growing at 100%.
Devic, how do you define that, Anne?
This is the overlighting energy for the plant realm. So if you work with that energy and assist that plant energy, then really the miraculous occurs. We have so much potential. Humanity has so much potential, and we're right on the edge of it. It's just going to burst open.
You see, it's endless curiosity, Anne, isn't it, that we need?
Yes.
I don't know about all these things, and I haven't read these things in a book.
No, you're not
But
going
what
to.
I'm doing is sitting with them and being curious, and I'm going to take them away and think about it. And when I come back and interview you again, I'll have other questions, or people watching this will.
Yeah.
And then there'll be those who go, that is too far out of my comfort zone and it does not exist. I will not believe it. There are those who do that around God and the divine. And I think that's okay too. They can do their journey their way. I can do mine my way. But if my children said, what's the most important thing, Mum, that you think we could carry forward, it would be curiosity. What do you think, Anne? What do you think is the most
Well,
important?
there's a whole chapter in one of those little books about asking questions, which is curiosity, and stepping off the edge and thinking outside the square.
What if it makes you feel uncomfortable and you think, I like to feel my world is controllable and I understand it? What if it takes you to that place?
Any change makes you feel uncomfortable. I'm a little bit uncomfortable sitting here with you, to be quite honest. But I'm trusting, and it's not you, it's me that's the problem. And I'm trusting
exposing
that it's going to be okay.
What makes you feel uncomfortable?
Well, I'm not used to being in the public eye.
Yeah. And you don't seek that.
No.
Why were you open to doing this today? Because I can feel you're not someone who would seek that out. Is it to help?
My higher self says I have to do it, so here I am.
Beautiful.
Rule number one for three-dimensional reality is you cannot help people.
Beautiful.
Rule number two is you cannot help people. You can assist them.
Yeah. You can inspire them.
Of course. And entice. And
Why is help not a good word, Pete?
help implies that the person is needy and deficient and lacking, and we are not like that. We just need to step into our power.
So it's a really exciting future you see.
Very much. For me, what's happening is so positive because my high self has been talking about these times since 1994. And we're like at the crunch point now before we break free, and it's all unfolding as my high self said it would unfold. And it's very exciting, it's very positive for me.
So positive
For
the sun
people-
even came out.
It's so beautiful talking to you. Just the other day, I was thinking, I think I'm focusing too much on all the bad things, on all that's wrong, on all the hurt people I've talked to.
Yes.
And I think it's worrying me so much that I'm not sleeping well, particularly those who've been injured. So to end, I want to ask this for those beautiful souls I've met. Is there hope for them if they've had the jab and they feel it's hurt them, or they're worried about it, or is there a way that in this new dimension there may be healing and hope for them as well?
I'm sure there will be. And of course, if you don't bring what you've been talking about into the public eye, people are not going to learn. So that energy is required.
That courage.
Yes.
Beautiful. We'll talk more about that in future programs. What a delight! I feel like a curious 5-year-old being offered a treasure trove, as if I've just walked into Aladdin's cave. Thank you both so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Jono.
Thank you, Jono, yeah.
Wonderful.